Welcome to Design Stand-Up, Episode 20, Information Architecture, a UX Designer's Guide, Part 2, by Justinmind of UX Planet. And I'm Ryan Stone, your host and fellow UX designer. Welcome to the show. If it's your first time listening, here at Design Stand-Up, I'm partnering with top blogs in the design industry to read you well-crafted articles from the best in the biz. My goal is to help you learn about design on the go, so you can spend less time staring at a screen and more time doing what you love. In today's episode, we finish up talking information architecture, written by wireframing company Justinmind. So without further ado, let's stand up. Information Architecture, a UX Designer's Guide, Part 2, by Justinmind of UX Planet. 8 Principles of Information Architecture. These 8 basic principles can serve as a guide to any UX designer trying to make sense of their product. Originally conceived by 8Shape's founder Dan Brown, these principles say that information architecture in itself is the practice of designing structures. Here they are. Principle number 1, the principle of objects. This principle regards how you see your content. Brown says that instead of looking at your content as something stiff and inanimate, like an object, you try and see it as a living thing, with its own life cycle, behaviors, and characteristics. The reason why this is a relevant principle in information architecture is that it allows you to treat your content with the flexibility it requires. If you see your content as its own being, it becomes easier for you to see possible relationships that content has with other data, to see different ways in which you can present this content to the user. A useful trait of this principle is that it embeds the content lifecycle into your architecture, preparing you for times when that content will boom and then mature. This happens surprisingly often with content that is more sought after seasonably. Brown gives us the example of a recipe website in which recipes can relate to each other as complementary or become more relevant in certain times, like turkey filling recipes around Thanksgiving. Principle number 2, the principle of choices. Brown refers to the epic work of psychology, The Paradox of Choices, by B. Schwartz, in which we learn that people have the illusion that they want to have as many choices as possible. Most UX designers will know that to not be true, and Schwartz and Brown agree. Here's the thing about giving your users lots of choices. The more choices we can make, the more cognitive power it takes for us to actually make that call. It can even cause anxiety. Brown gives us the example of a corporate intranet, where it is custom for big companies to display large amounts of information with little regards for categorizing content or information architecture in general. The result is that people waste vast amounts of time looking for that little piece of data they actually want, or just give up on using that intranet altogether. Doesn't sound like something you want to happen to your product, does it? That's exactly what information architecture aims to avoid. It's recommended that you make your lists, all of them, shorter, especially at the higher hierarchical levels. This is also something you want to bear in mind when designing a matrix structure for your content. Users can only choose from a certain amount of options before they stop enjoying themselves and start actively making effort to use your product. Principle number 3, the principle of disclosure. This principle deals with the fact that people can only process new information in a certain way. What we mean by this is that people don't deal with unexpected or unwanted information. This is a concept called progressive disclosure. It means that in your information architecture, you need to organize your data so that people can not only absorb it at a normal rate, but so that they can anticipate further information before it's presented. In your UX design, this means thinking about the brief bits of information you give away in any type of list or grid that acts as a gateway to the detailed content. Let's go back to Brown's recipe website example. You can't hope to display the full recipe on all the pages the users navigate through, but how do you decide what to show in listing out possible recipes? Type of cuisine is a good indicator of the dish, but it falls short of giving the user a clear picture of what they can expect in that recipe. Your design should select just enough information to help the user decide if they want to click on that recipe or not. Principle number 4, the principle of exemplars. This principle refers to the psychology of how humans categorize things. Ultimately, we are able to categorize concepts by creating a list of examples that help us group different concepts together, no matter the criteria behind this grouping. When it comes to applying this to your information architecture, think of the way you display category lists on your app or on your website. Each category needs an example of the type of content that inhabits that category. You can use the biggest, most commonly used subcategories. This way, the subcategories double as a shortcut for most users and clear examples that help users understand each top category. Principle number 5, the principle of front doors. Brown says it's wise for any designers to assume that people will reach your website via another page that isn't your homepage. This can have surprising consequences on your web page design, but less so on mobile app design. This leads Brown to two main recommendations regarding your information architecture. A. Always tell people where they are. Your website will have so many destination pages, and visitors can come through just about any of them. Therefore, it's important that you reflect the website map somewhere the user can see. So if you just followed a link from Google to a blog post, you should be able to see what category that blog post is and other similar content. This is important to give brand new users an idea of logic within a large structure, as opposed to a large lake filled with little bits of content, each random in its own fashion. And B, your homepage shouldn't be the whole website. The difference between a homepage that is too long and tries to do everything to a good one is simple. A good homepage should give the user a clear sense of your purpose, of the things that can be found on your website as a whole, but it shouldn't try to display all the available and detailed information to the user. When it comes to information architecture, your homepage shouldn't act as a shortcut central to every corner of your website, but rather the big picture showing what the website is about. Principle number 6, the principle of multiple classification. This comes from the fact that even among a small group of similar people, you'll still find that people have different ways of looking for information. Some people would type the general topic of the data they are looking for, such as beachwear, for example, while others will naturally go for the type of data they want, like bikinis. This is important to your design and information architecture because you need to account for this in your search system. This is a fine line to walk because it comes with a catch. The more ways you give users to find information, the more likely it is that they become overwhelmed or distracted. Principle number 7, the principle of focused navigation. Brown states that your navigation shouldn't simply include all the content in your website. Many design teams get carried away with the adding of navigational menus everywhere on the website, making the menu itself lacking in logic, and information architecture is all about logic and user experience. Instead, Brown recommends you have a strategy in your menus and have different menus for different types of information when possible. One menu for blog post topics and a separated marketing menu where you list out the services the company offers, for example. This will improve the usability of your website, even if it removes a button that goes straight to the contact page. Remember that information architecture is all about separating things according to their correct category so the user knows exactly where he is and where to find the desired information, not creating a web of links that connect every little piece of information to the homepage. And principle number 8, the principle of growth. This is a rule that anyone working with content should bear in mind. The amount of content in your product is likely to grow over time. It's fairly logical. Putting up content on the internet continues to become cheaper every day. As a whole, digital content increases exponentially every year, and you should assume your content will follow in the same footsteps. Reflecting the distinct possibility of content growth in your design ain't easy, however. The reason why it's so difficult arises from the fact that even though you know there will be more content, you can't possibly know how much more content. How do you design your information architecture for content that doesn't exist yet? On the same note, your product can grow in all sorts of directions. Are we talking about new categories or just new content for existing categories? Brown recognizes that unfortunately, there isn't a simple recommendation or established way to avoid trouble when your content grows. The best any of us can do is to design pages that can accept new forms of content to prepare for a likely content expansion in the future. In other words, create pages that will accept videos, even if you don't use video content right now. Another trick that your information architecture structure should have up its sleeve is to have top-level categories be as broad as possible, in case you need to add extra new subcategories in the future. Conclusion. Information architecture is vital if you want your users to understand your product enough to enjoy it. You want to create a structure that your users can not just understand, but also predict, so people don't need to go in circles looking for information and can learn their way around your product easily. Remember that good information architecture and good UX design go hand in hand, be it in delivering a blog post to a reader or helping a new player get settled in your open-world video game. Pay attention to detail and don't bombard your users with more information or more decisions than they can handle. Using your product should feel natural and not like running a marathon or looking around your house for that phone charger you haven't seen in 2 days. Take every opportunity to test your information architecture in your user testing. Make sure people don't get confused or frustrated with the way information is presented to them. When you have a lot of information, it can be tough to present it in a way that makes sense. But humans have always found ways to make sense of information, and you should be able to reflect that in your design with the right planning. So don't panic. Just breathe and go back to the root of everything. What is the user's goal at any point in time? How can you help the user reach that goal in the easiest way possible? That is the single question that carries the most weight in information architecture. You just listened to the post titled Information Architecture, a UX Designer's Guide, Part 2 by Justinmind of UX Planet. If you want to learn more about Justinmind, just press the link in the show notes or head over to UX Planet at uxplanet.org. Oh, and don't forget, if you enjoy the show, make sure to head over to Apple or Google Podcasts and leave a quick rating or review. I'd love to hear your feedback. Well, that's all I have for you today, guys. It's been a pleasure. Until next time, fill up those coffees, turn up those tunes, and let's design a better world.